that one funny guy. Chris Rock says, and I quote, "I would eat a pig's ass if you cook it right." Which I think means, like if it's food, pretty much. And so how many people are in that category? Like as long as it looks appetizing, you don't ask about ingredients. And then, how many of you have stuff that you absolutely cannot eat because someone says you can't eat this? Like, have food taboos. There's things that you can't, like, you have to ask.
Like our mom doesn't want to eat it?
For example, sure. So either a religious taboo,
Like an allergy?
or you've got like an allergy or some other rules. Who's got rules of exclusion? Like, I can't eat grains, or I can't eat gluten, or I don't eat meat, or I don't eat dairy. Who's got stuff that they don't eat?
Because they're allergic?
Yeah, allergic is fine.
I almost killed myself.
So your allergies are?
I forgot that I was allergic to clams when I was playing cat road. And like right as it got there, I was like, I'm definitely allergic to this, so that's pretty cool.
And you?
I drink lactose-free milk.
Okay. Yeah, most of us can't digest lactose, actually. It's like, maybe some people's stomachs don't support the acidophilus that helps you digest lactose. But we're all lactose intolerant. And as a matter of fact, if we didn't get dosed with dairy in our early youth, we would remain like you. Most adult Japanese people are lactose intolerant because they haven't had a dairy industry for very long because of their land use policies. So lactose has only reached the majority of Japanese population in the last couple of decades.
My family raised me and Kyle to not eat red meat and buttermilk, and Kale's vegetarian now.
Kale's a veg, and you grew up not
Still.
without red meat?
So I only seafood and poultry.
Seafood and poultry. And this is an environmental concern or a...
how their red meat's way worse for you.
Okay. And in your case, who else had one? Did one of you girls have an exclusion thing? Anybody else have allergies? And now what's yours? Or are you moving your sweater? Moving your sweater. And then, who's just picky about stuff? Like, I don't like cilantro, and I don't like... Okay, so when I point, just tell me what you don't like, and then put your hand down. Cucumbers and tomatoes.
Bits of fruits in my yogurt.
Bits of fruit.
Like red.
Red meat. Who doesn't like avocado? Get out of California right now.
I eat avocado.
She says you don't.
Liar.
She is a liar. Okay. Cheese. Who else doesn't like something? Onions.
Who said they don't like cheese?
Cheese and pork.
Cheese and pork in combination, or you don't like cheese or pork? You don't like chocolate?
Say it right. Chocolate. What is that? Like brownies and cake and cupcakes.
Far
I
out.
like raw, chocolate bar.
Okay. You like chocolate and candy, not chocolate the ingredient.
Yeah.
Who else?
I like tomatoes.
You don't like or you do like?
Are you Italian?
You hate apple cinnamon? Oh.
I can eat bananas, but I can't have banana in anything, smoothie or yogurt. I can't do banana bread.
So, you like bananas?
I can eat a banana, love bananas and fruit, but I can't do it as an ingredient at all.
You don't eat fast food? Or you can eat fast food? You don't. Yeah. To drink milk? Yeah. No pickles? Okay. Now me, please. You don't like Chinese food?
I don't eat American Chinese food.
Now I'm waiting. I want to keep waiting, I guess. I'd like to continue. So, this is my favorite unit of the year. We have introduced be quiet. We have introduced environmental science, and then we spent 2 chapters introducing ecology. So now we know where the science happens. the two factors of ecology are welcome to the planet, it looks like this, it's got these nutrients and this water and this rock and this plate tectonics. So we introduce like the basics of the earth, and you know where there's ice, and you know where there's grass, and you know why desert is how desert is. Now we get to the actual environmental science, and I have to warn you. If the tests have been easy for you, okay, just keep doing what you're doing and you're probably going to be fine. But for people who've been overwhelmed, I was just setting the stage, and now we get to the nitty-gritty. Look inside your study guide and tell me how many study goals there are.
How many weeks is this? 3.
Me again, please. You'll notice you have 70 study goals. That's 3 chapters, 3 in-class movies, and your reading packet gets divided into 2 separate assignments because it's such a honker. We're getting to the real meat and potatoes. That's a food analogy. Of environmental science. Is that a metaphor? Meat and potatoes? Yeah, metaphor. And for me, this is actually my favorite unit. I'm obsessed with food. Now, first of all, I'm obsessed with food because both of my grandmothers were Italian, and our entire social and family life revolved around eating. Aside from being Italian, I also just plain old love food because I have like a giant tapeworm, so I get to eat all day. I have no idea how, but I eat like double of the healthy caloric intake. When I was your age, my best friend and I had to live in different places. I left Lambton as a high school junior to go to University High School in Irvine. And my oldest friend, she was a girl that I had met for many years earlier, she stayed in Lambton. So junior and senior year, I was in Orange County hating my life and falling in love with that Korean girlfriend that got hooked on meth and almost killed me a couple times. I'll tell you that story someday. And then, after high school, I came to UCSB for college, and my old friend went to Humboldt University in Arcata. And I would go up and visit her every chance I had because she's my oldest friend and we're really close. The first time I went to visit her up in Humboldt, she was living in the dorms, and it was just like college life. And then she started her freshman year. And I went to go visit her the summer after freshman year, and she had moved to off-campus apartments. And when I went back that winter break to visit her during the winter season, she was living on some dude's farm about an hour away from the university. And then when I went back for spring break, she dropped out of college and was full-time farm worker, barefoot, in this dude's growing farm. And every summer thereafter, I went back to work on his farm.
Growing what?
Well, he's the only... I don't know. I mean, this is the great irony. I won't deny that he's smoked pot on and off through his life, but he's pretty much the only farmer I know that hasn't grown pot. He actually grew pot as like a high school, college student, like Marin County and Humboldt County hobby things. But as a farmer, he had really strict limits on that. And so he's probably the best peach I've ever eaten in my life. His is probably the best peach I've ever eaten in my life. And he grows row crops really well. He jumped on the Pluot and Aprium thing really early and did pretty well with that. He grows a mean apple, Gravensteins. He used to have unbelievable cherries, Bing and Rainier, but then they got an unusual pest, an invasive pest up in NorCal. Anyway. I worked about 10 separate seasons on his farm. I'd go up and work a couple of weeks. in the summer, and I worked maybe 2 or 3 springs and 1 or 2 winters up there. Then when I bought my own land in the mountains up on West Camino Cielo, my wife and I grew the majority of our food for about 3 years, and some of our food for another 2 or 3 years after that. You guys know I run a food production thing down here. Zero Period, I teach food production. I've worked with a couple of farmers nearby, so almost all my food is grown by 2 families. And I know the Lane family, I know the Fairview people, I know the Los Olivos Fruits people very well. He's a good friend of mine. And the Hilltop Farms, the Abbott family, I know them really well. I know a lot of the famous farmers around here, like BD and Tom. I know the Gibbons, the Lanes, most of the big farms. And I'm really into food. We've laid the basic introduction to our planet. You all know where environmental science takes place now, but we're gonna get into the real nitty-gritty. If you've been doing okay on the exams, just keep doing what you've been doing, and I'm sure you'll be fine. But if you've been struggling, I gotta warn you, like, the details become extremely voluminous starting now. If you're feeling comfortable with the class, just keep going. There's about half of you that are totally fine, no extra credit required, you'll be great, it's all good. And there's another third of you that are probably going to figure things out, and you're right on the edge, and you just had some bad luck, or you blew it, and that's cool. But that leaves, a little less than a third of you, that maybe a quarter of my students, that really, really got to figure out something new. I say start doing much, much, much more detailed note-taking, and I have a great tutor to recommend if you want. He has group rates. So if you want to team up with 2 other students, you get the tutoring for cheaper. Really good guy, former student of mine, brilliant, total genius, literally a genius, pass the test genius. Not pass the AP test genius, I mean pass the genius test genius. Robert Salazar, he lives in Spencer Pritchard's house, coincidentally. Fun fact. You need to start taking notes differently, and you need to take a lot of notes, because there's nothing that's going to be familiar anymore. Those 70 study goals, they're pretty short answers, but you need all the details to each of them. I've been talking about ecosystems, and you're like, yeah, photosynthesis, I got this. But now we're going to get to the part where I don't think any of you got this. It's all new content from here out. There are going to be 3 Wednesday films plus 3 films during class. This week gets really boring because we have a movie today, movie tomorrow, movie Wednesday, movie Thursday. And then there's probably going to be a couple Tuesday, Thursday movies because I have 20 amazing food movies. We have 2 labs, which means you've got 4 lab assignments, 2 pre-labs and 2 post-labs. You can see that there's 2 pre-labs and both post-labs. And it's a 3-week unit. So we're going to be banging it out. This is hardcore environmental science starting now. But before we get into any of that stuff, I wanted you to think about your food rules, because I want you to think about a few other things too. There's a lot of surprises in this unit. For example, there is no global food shortage. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but humans today grow enough calories to feed every human on the planet about triple what they need to survive. There is no supply problem. It's just a distribution problem. Now, food matters because it's our primary water use and our primary land use. It's also the only resource, aside from water, that we all need to survive. So questions of food distribution are usually questions of life or death. If there was a convenient way to take all of your scraps, to take all the wasted food in the United States and ship it internationally, we could end world hunger today. We throw away more food than all the planet's starving people need to survive. It's not easy to feed them, but you know, it's not about the food supply, it's about the food distribution. You might be surprised to know that every president since Ronald Reagan has stocked their cabinet with executives from the 4 big food companies. That's Reagan, Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, and Obama. All have their cabinets that include at least one representative of the 4 biggest food companies, Monsanto, Cargill, AFG, and Pioneer, whatever it's called. Those 4 companies have had one executive in the president's cabinet. All 4 of them, every president, every cabinet, to the early 1980s. I've got a fun fact for you. If your food was wrapped in a package, you have a 78% chance that it includes at least one genetically modified organism. And you would probably like to know, because like 80% of Americans, we would all like to know if we're eating genetically modified food. But you know the funny thing is, some federal judge decided you're not allowed to. If you knew, you might make stupid decisions, so it's better that you just don't know. Yes?
Stupid decisions like not eating food?
You shut up.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm kidding. You speak, go ahead. But that's the whole point. Yeah, right. So the industry defense to labeling was, our public's not very well informed, and God forbid they would turn away food that they might need. And the judge goes, yeah, you're right. Okay. So rather than you making hasty decisions about what's healthy or not healthy, you just don't get to decide at all. If it's packaged, you have about a 75 to 78% chance that it contains at least one genetically modified ingredient. I took Alessio's wrapper, and my hunch was he had 3 or 4 genetically modified ingredients in his Ritz peanut butter sandwiches. Yeah?
Wasn't there something on the ballot about that last year?
Yes, there was. Yeah, it was outspent 40 to 1, I believe. No, I'm not 4 to 1. 4 to 1. Totally not 40 to 1. Yeah. Yes?
Can you give an example of genetically modified?
Well, sure. We can take genes out of one thing and put them in something else.
But how drastically does that change things?
Well, maybe not at all, maybe a little bit. We've never really tested. So it's a very good question. We'll wait to see how things go, and then we'll let you know. Yes?
What's like one name of a genetically modified ingredient?
Well, one of the most common ones that we grow in this country is what we call Roundup Ready. Roundup kills any plant. Roundup is a plant killer, but you can make a plant immune to the poison. So then you shoot the poison everywhere, and the immune ones survive. So we can grow corn that is not sensitive to Roundup, and then we just use crop dusters to spray the crop, and all living things die except that corn. That's very common. We have BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a soil bacterium that's deadly if you eat it. You'd have to eat, like a 5-gallon bucket of this. But we took the poison gene out of that bacteria, we put it into other foods, so when the bugs try to eat the plant, the bug dies, because the plant is poison. Yeah. Or we feed it to our animals and then we eat it. Or we use it for funny chemistry and then we make chemical derivatives of food. Yes, girls?
We have something that might be really bad.
How bad?
Either somebody says the worst person ever at math, or the greatest at math.
Actually, you're the worst person ever at math. I challenge you to figure out what they did.
But it's not consistent with the other previous.
Maybe I'm the worst person.
Like,
They doubled the essay?
10 plus 1 equals 12.
Right, because they're doubling the essay. They're doubling the essay. On Unit 2, they're doubling the essay score. They put the undoubled essay score down instead of the doubled essay score down.
Yeah.
You're thinking about all the other exams, I think. Hold on. The Unit 1 exam, they recorded the essay times 2. In the Unit 2 exam, they recorded the raw essay score, and then they doubled it when adding.
We're looking at the Unit 2 essay, or Unit 2 maths,
Uh-huh.
and the periods are not consistent.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
In period 1, they didn't double the essay score?
No, they just added them together.
What about in period 2?
That's the same.
They're added together, they didn't double the essay score in Unit 2?
They did not double the essay score.
Save all of the corrections in a pile and I'll fix this, but I actually looked it all over and I thought it was all done correctly, so just remind me to look at it with you after the class. This isn't something I can solve from across the room. The food thing is kind of extreme and kind of interesting. You know, here's a couple of fun facts. Every 3.6 seconds, someone starves to death. Somewhere on our planet. So we've been in class for, about 30 minutes. So that's about 120, no, 30 times 16. Every minute, how many? 15 per 450 people have died of starvation on our planet while you were sitting in this room. Give or take, probably plus a few. In addition to the people who are dying of starvation, there's a lot of people who just have malnutrition, like they can't get a rounded diet. So they're surviving, but they're not healthy. They're surviving on like a patch of food. So they're eating just rice, or they're eating just corn, or they're eating some ingredients, but not the right mix of ingredients. Meanwhile, back in United Statesville, 69% of Americans are either overweight or outright obese. That includes 12% of our children 2 to 5 being obese. 2 to 5-year-olds. Adolescents like you have triple the rate of obesity we did 30 years ago. Almost 20% of you are obese now. Not you, you're all the beautiful people. Check this out. Even our pets are obese in this country. 54% of our pets. In my country, the dogs are skinny. Because we eat the food. Our dog food calories are sufficient to end world hunger. It's a very strange food system that we have. It's a very, very strange food system that we have. And it's not your fault. But maybe the more you know, the more you can do about it. Just saying. These are really fundamental issues. Unfortunately, the people who make your food decisions, they're the people who run your government, and a lot of times you don't feel like you have a lot of choice in government, so maybe you don't vote, or maybe you vote based on simpler things, or maybe you don't get a real choice because our democracy is critically flawed, as beautiful as it is. But I think this is the most interesting unit of the year. Our primary land use, our primary water use, connections to social justice, things to feel guilty about, things to feel proud about, connections with global biodiversity and cultural diversity and economics. It's a really, really neat unit. And it's a good intro because the rest of APES is like this, kind of full of facts and full of white guilt. I'm just kidding. Kind of. I mean, a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really kidding. I try not to turn down food because I feel some guilt. Oh, here's a funny little fact for you. Do you guys know that roughly half of the planet's food allergies live in the United States? But we have 5% of the world population. So how does that work? That's right. You know why? Chris Rock said that one too. Hungry people ain't allergic to anything. Like, I've never heard a really starving person say, "Oh, dang, thanks, but I don't eat meat with my cheese." Can't do that. You know, a lot of our food rules, they are luxuries. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. Like, a lot of people say that they are starving when they're hungry. And I'm sorry. I'm glad you're not starving, but you're not starving. Don't ever say you're starving. Because there's a real starving person that died 3.6 seconds ago. Or less. So when I hear some like well-fed American person go, "Oh, I'm starving," they sit down and eat, I always go, "Ooh, bro, not really. Wrong lingo." I get the idea, it's a figure of speech, it's cool, but you know what I mean, like, when we use these figures of speech so offhanded, like, "Well, I'm starving," it's like, no, think more about that.
The conversation starter.
Usually it's a conversation ender. Whenever I turn around in the restaurant and go, "Actually, bro, you're not," that's not a good way to get started. I don't usually make friends with that way.
I had to ask.
Yeah. But you gotta admit, that's the thing that we all say all the time, right? I said it this morning. And I was like, wait, I gotta start teaching food today. I'm really not starving. What's that?
I said it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no. But like, if you think about it, like, have you ever gone more than 24 hours without eating food?
I don't think it's more than 5 hours.
Yeah, I've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, has any...
I don't know.
If we're really good.
Yeah, I mean, has anybody... Okay, so let me rule out the obvious things. Removing illness and removing personal choice. Has anyone gone 24 hours without food? Really?
Yeah, I was at a friend's house, and I couldn't actually get out of the house because I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So,
This is getting so good. Okay, skip the food stuff and back to the rest of the story.
yeah, so like, I don't know, like I just didn't eat for 24 hours because I guess like I just couldn't really eat. Like,
Dang.
it was like,
All right.
the worst time.
All right, you can take that. That's fine. Anybody else? So unless you're breaking and entering or whatever, we don't even have hunger. Yeah?
I was flying to Europe when I was like 6, and they ran out of like meal. And so I didn't eat.
This is how we encounter starvation. I mean, but that's my point. It's okay. You're not bad. It's cool, man. But that's exactly my point. We have no idea what hunger is like. We don't even... Like, how would you starve? I have no idea. I could just find food on the ground if I was hungry. Like, look. How hungry can I possibly be? The trash can right behind me probably has some food in it. Bad example. Okay, but there's usually food in my trash can. Yeah, I could eat the apple core of that trash can. There we go. You know, we're all parts of this system. Our food system is something that we own and something that we can control. We often forget how much control we have, but we do have a role in this. And our food system doesn't interest most of us. Do you guys realize that Americans spend less of their income on food than almost any other country on earth? Meaning that we've got so much money that food is just a detail. We spend less than 10% of our income. Most countries spend 30%. Some countries spend more than 50% on their food.
Is that also because we have higher income?
Yeah, we have so much income that even though we have one of the most indulgent diets on the planet, we can still get that much food without a major investment. I mean, I indulge in food. I am super picky about food. When I pay for it, I'm like super snobby. If I'm going to pick it out and I'm going to choose it to pay for it with my money, like I know the guys that have grown about 60% of my vegetable foods all year for the last like decade. Most of my meat, if I don't get it myself, comes from somebody else who got it. I drink like premium beers, all organic ingredients unless there's absolutely zero choice. I eat really, really, really good breads. I make almost every meal from scratch. And I spend about 10% of my income on food. And in the United States, that's crazy. Most people spend a third of what I spend on food. We don't even think about it. The food just sort of shows up and we eat it and somebody takes away the scraps and whatever. We get back to making money. But you know, like what is it? A third of humanity lives on less than $2 a day? Half of humanity lives on less than $3 a day. Yeah.
Have you seen that some website which shows different cultures and countries and
Yeah, I have. You know, like about a third of our species has one meal a day. Like, you would probably say I'm starving. And by the way, you wouldn't be. You would just be hungry. And hunger is normal. Unless you're us. I mean, what percentage of your plates when you eat out do you actually finish all the food on your plate? Like when you go to a restaurant, how often do you give back a clean plate? Yeah. I mean, I do too, but you know what I mean. Like, if you look around, most people are sending back something on them. So I make a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes about white guilt, probably because I need to process my own white guilt. I really don't want anybody here to feel any actual guilt. You're not even responsible for most of the things that happen in your world, because no offense, but you're not like voting participatory members of our economy. So you got nothing to feel guilty about. It's cool. You're involved. But you are going to be voting participatory members of our economy really soon, so I think it's good for you guys to pay attention to this unit. I think it's really neat. Anybody want to talk more about the food thing? Is there any like little topic? I've got so many things I could talk about. What? Well, in this country, we ate a quarter the sugar, 2/3 the calories, half the fat about 60 years ago. So your grandparents ate way better than you will ever eat. After the war, we had all these chemists, all these factory types, and we turned food into chemistry in factories. So really in the 1950s, food production took a giant change. And then another one in the 60s with the Green Revolution, and we figured out all the agrochemicals, and then again in the 70s. And then in the 80s with our international food markets, it was called banana republics, where a whole country will grow one crop for export and then they buy all their food. Then we mechanized everything in the 90s. Then we GMO'd everything in the 2000s. So you eat like food, but your grandparents ate food. Yes?
The genetically modified foods that you were talking about is like 75%?
It depends who you ask. 75 to 78% of packaged foods contain at least one GMO ingredient.
So the way that they're made like that, where they're like resistant to chemicals that are sprayed to like pesticides or whatever?
That's one possible modification.
Is that like bad for you to eat that? Or is that like
Well, I don't know, because we haven't really tested that very much. Our federal government made an assumption. They said, wait, if it's still like a tomato, even if it got weird genes, we're going to just treat it as a tomato. So it doesn't usually have specialized testing done. Yeah?
So 75 to 78% per packaged item or overall?
The odds of a packaged item containing one genetically modified ingredient are 75 to 78%. So if you grab 10 packaged items, they will have at least one GMO ingredient in the item, 7 or 8 of the 10. Make sense? Anybody else? I gotta tell you, I'm all over the place with this. I'm super into the food thing. This is what got me into environmental science as a topic to teach you. I think more people need to think about their food, and so that's why I started to do environmental science. Yeah?
Did you hear about pizza being considered a vegetable by the Department of Agriculture?
So yes and no, and it's for the kids' servings, because the way they define the kids' serving is how many calories of fruit or vegetable, and the sauce just barely clears that threshold, and so however you deliver the sauce, it counts as one of the vegetable servings. Yeah. It's not exactly the same way that we discuss it. Like everybody knows it's not a vegetable. But yeah, pizza counts as a serving of vegetables for a child, according to the U.S. FDA, Food and Drug Administration. There's the whole organic thing. It's very interesting. Now there's the whole local thing, which is probably more important than organic. Did I tell you about the seafood? 1/3 of humanity gets most of their protein out of the ocean. And there's no part of the world that has growing seafood supplies, except maybe Alaska. So everywhere on the planet, the primary source of protein is disappearing. That's scary. People cannot fish anymore, like subsistence fishing, like where a poor person could get on the boat and go fishing near shore. That's not possible anymore. Almost all the food you eat comes from the deep ocean or the open seas.
It's not possible because there's no fish, or is it
Primarily, there's not enough fish near the coast anymore. Secondarily, there are legal limitations. Like most of the coastline of Africa has actually been sold off to European companies, and so Africans aren't allowed to fish in their own country. Many countries. You know, not all of them. But especially in like Kenya, I believe, that's like the one key example. Kenya basically sold out their energy rights and their fishery rights. Yeah. Well, most freshwater lakes are oligotrophic. They have very few, if any, ingredients in them. Not enough nutrients to support a food web. All right, so listen up. We got to start our first movie today. Like I warned you, we're going to just charge through movies the next 2 or 3 days of class. It's going to be back-to-back-to-back movies. But I want to give you one hint now. You're not experts in agriculture, so listen very carefully to this. This is a huge hint. Throughout this unit, you're going to be writing down study goals because you have like 14 study goals in the 3 films. And then you're going to do 2 separate assignments on the reading packet because it's like that thick. But I'm offering you a free hint. I strongly recommend you start a sheet of paper like this with good things or bad things in agriculture, because watch me, please look up. Sometimes they'll tell you a solution without telling you the problem. And sometimes they'll tell you the problem without the solution. Sometimes you'll get both, problem and solution. But as you go through the unit, you'll find a solution to this problem 2 weeks after you heard the problem. Or you'll hear the wrong way to do things like 2 weeks after you heard the right way. So for you to have the contrast, you're going to have to organize the good and the bad. You understand what I mean by that? And we're going to start with one of the Meryl Streep introductions, but I'm going to fast forward her part. So are you all ready to start on question number 33? So what I was telling Hannah is, you'll do that one paper, you be quiet. You'll do that one paper and the study goals at the same time. You'll want to keep that paper out just so you can organize your good and bad contrast. So you ready to start 33?
Modern intensive farming, huge fields of single crops, artificial fertilizers, chemicals to fight insects and weeds, large-scale irrigation, crops anytime, any place. Modern farming has produced a bonanza, nearly tripling yields since 1950 and staying well ahead of a world population that doubled at the same time. The surplus is greatest in Europe and America, and some poorer countries have surpluses too. But in 50 years, world population will double again. Can farmers keep on working these wonders? That could be tough. The environment is showing signs of wear. Topsoil is eroding away. Agricultural chemicals are beginning to lose their magic. In many places, adding more pesticides, for example, no longer kills more insects. At the same time, those chemicals are contaminating the environment. We should be reducing, not increasing their use. But there are some farmers who are working in new, environmentally beneficial ways, keeping their land fertile without the use of chemicals, for example. The new ideas make sense all over the world. In Africa, in Asia, Europe, and America. Preserving the soil and helping in the age-old battle against pests. These new strategies, some of them amazingly simple, will play an increasing part in the struggle to feed the world without destroying the environment. California's Central Valley. Fully 1/4 of America's fruit and vegetables is grown here using modern intensive methods. These crops take a lot of labor. While this pruning crew needs to work, like farm workers around the world, they are also becoming aware of the hazards. This is a typical example. An almond orchard is to receive a winter spraying with an organophosphate, a highly toxic pesticide which needs careful handling. The aim is to kill insects during their dormant phase, one of several sprayings the orchard may get in a year. The problem is that the sprays affect more than just insects. Luis Hernandez lives in the Central Valley town of McFarland. He used to be a pesticide sprayer until his 6-year-old son, Jaime, developed cancer. 5 months ago, it was discovered Jaime had a rare cancer of the lymph system. He had emergency surgery and now comes to the hospital twice a month for chemotherapy.